Hello, this is wmpyr here to talk about dirty boxing. But first, let me say Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Hope you guys are being warm and staying safe. Two very, very important things. And I hope you're all having a good time with your family and loved ones. Okay. So anyway, just wanted to wish you all best wishes in that sense. Okay, so dirty boxing. Dirty boxing, the formal name is panantukman, right? And that focuses on the punching aspect. And then we also have something called pananjakman, which focuses more on kicking. The kicking is, from my understanding, low-line kicking rather than like high kicks and stuff. So it's different from like Taekwondo. Um, and the reason why it's called dirty boxing is because, my understanding is that this is designed for the street. So the street is no rules. So then, therefore, you're talking about like boxing plus. It's based off of boxing, but now you can attack the eyes, you can attack the throat, you can attack the groin, things like that. So if you put Panantukman and Pananjakman together, then in the way that I see it, and this is what I share with you guys, is you pretty much get dirty kickboxing. So if you got dirty kickboxing, it's just basically kickboxing, but designed for the street, right? So on one side, we have the dirty boxing and the dirty kicking, put them together, dirty kickboxing. But there's also something called dumag, which is Filipino wrestling. So if you have all three of those together, then you have basically MMA for the street, right? And then on this side, you have Kali, Eskrima, and Arnis, and all of that belong in the category of Filipino martial arts, okay? So there's probably more other styles that I haven't mentioned. I'm without a doubt that there is. I'm just not familiar with the other styles. But those are the main ones that I focus on. And Kali, Eskrima, and Arnis, even though the names are different, please think of them as the same thing. And it is a primarily weapons-based martial art, right? So what I'm trying to say is that the dirty MMA and Kali, Eskrima, Arnis are like two separate things, although they do connect, and I'll talk about that in a second. They definitely do connect, but they are different things. So normally in Kali, Eskrima, Arnis, you don't do like boxing type training or wrestling type training. It's not in there. Today I'm seeing more and more, even some video footage of some practitioners in the Philippines. I see them put on gloves, I see them hold focus mitts and stuff like that, and I'm seeing some crossovers. I'm even seeing some people go to the ground and do some submissions and stuff. So there's definitely crossover for sure, but I'm just saying traditionally it is a separate thing, and I'm here to kind of like encourage that as a good thing. I do think it's great to cross train. In fact, I recommend it. And I do think it's also very, very good to mix them up too, right? But it's also good to know that they're different. So I want to also use that as an advantage as well, okay? To combine, I think, is common. A lot of people will combine them together. But yeah, I want to focus on the fact that it's different and use that as an advantage, which to me is it's harder to do. So anyway, the first thing is when I look up dirty boxing, Panantukman on YouTube, what I'm seeing is a lot of times they're doing the boxing as an entry, and then they pretty much get into lock flow. Lock flow has joint locks, chokes, takedowns, and throws, right? So once you do that, and the opponent ends up on the ground, and then you can finish them on the ground. But you go into lock flow, and that's definitely where the connection is between Kali, Eskrima, Arnis, because we also practice lock flow there. So that is the connection. So in the dirty boxing, you're using your boxing as, from what I'm seeing on YouTube, is as an entry point to get into lock flow, okay? So once you get into lock flow, if your opponent is good at punching or they're a boxer, now they're going to be lost because that's not their thing, right? But the problem for me is when I watch that is like, okay, but you still have to punch your way in. In other words, your punch has to be effective enough that you can get into close range and use lock flow, right? So if that's the case, right, the first message there to me is, A, you got to go train in boxing, which I think is a great message. And for my students, I do recommend that. I do recommend do some basic boxing, do some basic kickboxing, do some basic wrestling. I do recommend that 100%, you know. But let's now look at it on the other point. If you do learn boxing, which is a good thing, and I'm saying it is, but now if you're using the dirty boxing and you're using the boxing as an entry to get in to do the lock flow, it kind of comes down to who is the better boxer. So the boxer is still safe at this point, and you're playing his game. You see, that's where the problem arises, okay? So if the guy is a much better boxer than you are, then, you know, you're not going to be able to utilize lock flow, because what I'm seeing on YouTube is they're using boxing to get into lock flow, but if they're a better boxer than you are, then you can't do that, you see. So that's the logic that I'm trying to show you guys. So what I'm trying to explain here is, now let's use the negative. The negative aspect is what is lacking in boxing, which is the Kali Eskrima harness. So if we come from that viewpoint, right, you're using your boxing, but if the other guy's better at boxing, then we got to use our boxing in a different way, right? The goal changes. So now it's not to land. What is a boxer trying to do? Land damaging shots to the opponent, damaging punches to the opponent. They want to hurt the opponent with punches, right? So that's what a boxer is basically trying to do, while they themselves don't get hit, right? So that's the art, that's the science, the sweet science of boxing, is to hit the opponent while you don't get hit, and hit them with damaging good shots, right? So now, because our focus has changed, we're not here to box with the other guy, right? We're using the negatives, we're using the not boxing. So if that's the case, then, you know, I don't need to land damaging shots. I don't need to be more skilled at boxing, playing the game of boxing and setting them up and faking them out. I don't necessarily need to do that for the purpose of landing a harder, more damaging hit, right? I still need to make sure that I don't get hit, that I'm safe. And then what's the next thing? My goal now is to just get into a position where I can do lock flow. So now my goal has changed. So when we look at it from that point, it's not bang, bang, now grab his arm and lock it up and take down and whatnot. That's the bang, bang doesn't need to be there, right? So now we're using punches in a completely different way. So I could throw a punch now, and it doesn't have to be damaging. It doesn't have to necessarily set up the opponent for a harder shot. I can throw these punches now for a completely different purpose, and that is to keep myself safe or to get in to where I can do lock flow. So now that changes the way that I punch. So I hope that makes total sense to you guys, and I hope to start showing you some of the tactics that I use that enable you to do that. You know, where it's not so much I'm trying to land this power shot to knock them out. That's no longer the focus. I don't need to outbox this guy now, but I'm still using boxing. So that's the interesting part. So anyway, that's it for now. Thank you for viewing, and take care, folks.